Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Black Scientist Cooperative. This afternoon, we have a treat for you. Our podcast is being taken over by the Jack and Jill Trailblazers of West Suburban Chicago chapter. For those of you who don't know, Jack and Jill of America Incorporated is a membership organization dedicated to nurturing future Black American leaders by strengthening children through leadership development, volunteer service, philanthropic giving, and civic duty. So earlier this year, we kicked off our season with Bishop Joseph W. Walker III, discussing the intersection of faith and science. It was a powerful episode. Our Trailblazers who are joining us today had some questions of their own on this topic. So we reached out to a very dear friend who will serve as our subject matter expert today. But before we get there, let's begin by introducing our host for today. Could you please introduce yourself and tell our audience this afternoon who you are?
Hello, my name is Jaden Wiggs.
Hi, my name is Simone Lockett.
Hi, my name is Elise Richmond.
Hi, my name is Ari Watson.
Thank you. Welcome, welcome. So, Ari, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Kick us off.
Well, my name is Ari, and I serve as the Trailblazer President of the WSCC West Suburban Chicago chapter of Jack and Jill. And today, for our host, we have Mr. Victor. And Mr. Victor, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you guys so much for having me and inviting me. And I love you said subject matter expert. Wow, that's some big shoes to fill there. But my name is Victor Jr., born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Went to Mount Carmel High School, had the opportunity to play basketball there, and playing basketball there, just being able to put this little round orange ball into the basket allowed me the opportunity to go to Dominican University on a 4-year scholarship to play basketball. So while at Dominican playing basketball, I studied criminal justice. So I came out of Dominican in 2000 with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I've been working in the field of criminal justice since 2003. I had a chance to do various things in the field, juvenile detention, probation officer, police officer, adult corrections. So I've been around in criminal justice. And then outside of work, I started a nonprofit organization called Imago Dei Ministries. We started that effort in 2001. And it's a ministry where we do a lot of work with inner city youth from disadvantaged communities, just trying to give them positive pro-social activities and things of that nature, just to keep them engaged and off of the street, trying to help reduce the rate of recidivism, trying to help reduce the truancy rate of our young people. And then also this year would be 9 years that I'm a preacher, a minister of the gospel. I'm a member and minister of Mount Eagle Baptist Church, located on the south side of Chicago as well. My home church, born and raised, been here all of my life.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that intro. So Ari, do you want to kick us off with our first question?
Sure. So for my first question I have for you is, can science in any way dissolve religion or disprove religion?
Can science anyway disprove religion? I think it depends, and my input is, it depends on which background, it depends on what you're trying to seek. It depends on what your end goal is. Is your end goal, I'm trying to get more of a scientific answer or proof about something, or is my end goal, I'm trying to figure out more about religion or faith or relationship with God? So I think the two, although they can be seemingly worlds apart, they are very similar in many ways. I don't think one can cancel out the other, or one can rule out the other. I think they both have their own purposes. They both have their own, input and impact on life and how we maneuver and operate day to day. So I don't think one can, disapprove the other in any way.
Victor, I agree with you 100%. For me, as a person who at some point worked on the scientific spectrum, did experiments and all that stuff, I really feel like science just provides like the evidence, the complexities of science provide the evidence that, make you think, wow, there is a God, like, because if you think about just how the body works, right? And how it works in concert and all the things that have to happen in order for us to just be.
Mm-hmm.
For me as a scientist, and this is just how I look at it, there must be a God, because we still don't know all the answers. Absolutely. And never will.
Never will. Yes, I agree with you. It's like you said, when you look at the body, just the amazement of how everything works perfectly. Everything has its own function. There must be a God, but yet when something in the body goes wrong, who do we run to? We may pray and we may ask God, but if something happened to me, I'm going to see a doctor. And so both have their parts.
Yeah. That's good.
Right. In the Bible, wasn't Luke a physician?
Luke was a physician.
Right. So, God grants each of us gifts and talents. Sometimes God uses people to execute his word and his will. That's
Absolutely.
my thoughts.
Absolutely. I agree.
Okay. Does anyone have another question?
Another question that I have is, can you fully believe in both faith and science, and could you see religion and science mixing?
I think you can fully believe in both. Like it was mentioned earlier, when you talk about science, it's more of like studying, it's more of evidence. You're getting your results based on experimentation or just collecting data. But when it comes to faith, I think it's more so, just not to turn this into Bible study, but the Bible says like faith cometh by hearing, right? And so faith is kind of hard to explain, especially to young people. When we're working with Imago Dei, these are questions and conversations that I love to have, but at the same time, these are the most challenging, because how do you really explain faith? You can kind of explain science because you have evidence to support it. When it comes to faith, it's like you hear something, you believe it, and so now you're going to move on what you heard and believe. And I believe that that's what faith is you're just putting your belief into action. You're okay, I believe this to the point where let me start making some moves on it. And so you can fully believe in both, but both have their own different parts. They're two separate entities, but I think sometimes, maybe we like to try to combine them. And in some aspects, they are closely related. But you can believe in the science of things, but also believe that there is a God. You can believe in the data that you have in front of you, but also believe, hey, I got to have a relationship with God. But I think the two of them, you can believe in both equally.
Thank you. Do we have another question?
So my first question is it okay for people to base their morals on science, like how many do with religion?
Okay, that's a tough one too. Thinking, just me personally, thinking about morals. See, I was raised in a home where I was taught, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. The gentleman opens the door, pull out the seat for the lady. I was taught those things, to say please, to say thank you. And so even before I was introduced to religion, my morals and how I was raised, those things kicked in first. And so I really don't even tie morals in 100% fully to religion or science. It was just how I was raised. And so I think whether a person believes in faith, have faith and believes in religion or not, or whether a person believes in science or not, they can still, they're still good people, as long as they have those morals and those core values and beliefs that, and so that's pretty much, like I said, that's how I was raised, even before I was ever introduced to who God was. Before I ever had a relationship with God personally, I always knew to say thank you. I always knew to say please, and just to be, polite. And so I think morals can be a category in itself outside of science and outside of religion.
And the second half of that question is, can science give people purpose the way religion does?
Absolutely. And just looking at the screen now, we see all of these wonderful doctors in different areas. And although I'm not a doctor, I'm a minister. But even with science in my profession, criminal justice, that's a science in itself. I said yes, because I believe that although I believe in a higher being and a higher power, it does take scientists, it does take people in certain areas to make all of this work. Education, doctors, criminal justice, it takes people in certain fields with certain, backgrounds, with certain studies, certain abilities. Like it was mentioned earlier, God has placed certain abilities inside of each and every one of us. And it's for a reason. It's for us to help this world go round and round. It's for us to bring everything together. So I believe, yes, science does give people purpose in life, such as religion, such as faith, such as our morals. So it all works together, in my opinion.
A question I have is, has religion changed to like accommodate science?
One more time, I want to make sure I heard your question clearly.
A question I have is like, has religion had to change, like accommodate like different scientific studies or new things learned in science?
Sure. Now, we've mentioned several words. We mentioned morals, we mentioned religion, we mentioned faith, we're mentioning science. When I think of religion, I think of Baptists, I think of Methodists, I think of Catholic. Just my background, I attended Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through college. And in that journey, I studied a lot of religion courses, but because I was in a Catholic institution, I learned the Catholic religion. And when I hear religion, I'm thinking this is a systematic way of doing something. And it was crazy because I've been in Catholic school all my life. However, I've been in the Baptist church all my life. And those two systematic ways of doing things are completely different, but yet it's supposed to get you to the same end goal, and that's your relationship with God. And so I think depending on the religion itself, some religions may try to accommodate what the science is, what the science is. Some religions may try to accommodate, how things are moving in society, with marriages and different beliefs and different things. So I think it just depends on religion. And so me personally, I really try to stay away from that word religion and substitute it either with the word relationship or faith, because I think that kind of individualize, my beliefs and what I'm thinking. Even though I've been in a Baptist church all of my life and I'm a minister in a Baptist church, I never consider myself as a Baptist preacher. I'm just a messenger of God. And I think sometimes, certain religions try to accommodate what science says. And, again, I try to stay out of that, religion, and I just try to keep living in that faith or that relationship.
Jaden, I'd like to kind of chime in on your question a bit too. I think that it's a couple of different ways you can look at it, like archaeology, right? So there's the Bible or, whatever religion that, you ascribe to. And there are supplementary books that help folks to understand those religions. And some of them include like dates, right? So, if you're talking about Christianity, dates in which when you believe Jesus walked the earth, right? And these timelines of, where and which different kingdoms existed. Something like archaeology, finding artifacts and dating those artifacts that's very much science. And it's very much used to write those supplemental books that are used to establish timelines for various religions. I think that another area in which sometimes science influences religion, or maybe more specifically denominations, because you can see debates within Christianity. So we'll take, for example, life, right? So depending on what church you belong to, what denomination in Christianity, some people think life begins when a baby is a fetus. And then you have a school of thought that believes that's not it. And so I think in cases like that, science can definitely influence the way in which people perceive religion and how they carve out their values as well. So I think science, in some ways does influence how individual people see religion. And that's just my thoughts.
Truly agree with that.
Do we have another question?
Yeah, I have a question. Does wanting to learn more about science or knowing things about science lead to a lack of faith?
In my opinion, absolutely not. I think it makes one well-rounded to be able to see what does religion say and to be able to understand what science is saying. I don't think either one, again, like rules out the other. Again, they're closely related, but it's like, both of them are so very important in how we operate and how we do things in our society, in our culture, and in the research. But I just think that it depends on what we're seeking. So if we're trying to get a closer relationship with God, then I would say science may not necessarily perhaps answer that more so than religion. But if I'm trying to just get a study of like, wow, we have an amazing God who created all of this and put all of this together, and I'm trying to get a systematic feel and understanding of how all of this works, then I think we can lean more towards the piece of science. Yeah, I just think I think you can't separate the two. And both of them have their purpose and their functions. Does that kind of help? You kind of understand what I'm saying?
So Victor, can we take a few steps back and give us some background? You said you were a founder of what is the name of it?
Sure, Imago Dei. Imago Dei is the Latin name. Yes.
So can you give us a little information about that and why did you create it?
Absolutely. So, like it was mentioned, God placed something inside of all of us. And what I learned was, I've been a musician since the age of 6, was playing the piano. I had a chance to play basketball, very competitive, high level, went through college on a scholarship. And there are many other things that the Lord has placed inside of me. And so when I did not make it to the NBA, which was a dream, which kid didn't want to be like Mike at the time, it bothered me to the point where it was like, man, I'm kind of upset with God. I kind of feel like he left me hanging. I've been a believer all of my life. God, you gave me this ability to play basketball, and then you just let it stop right there after Dominican University. And then musician, I always wanted to record an album, just to be a musician, playing it, accompanying a great singer. And that never happened. I'm like, wow, really, God, you had me playing this organ and sacrificing all these hours learning and coming to rehearsals. And so when I became a probation officer, that's when the light bulb clicked. So I started off my journey as working with young people in DuPage County as a detention officer. I was working inside of the correctional facility there. But I found myself wanting to work with young people before they got incarcerated, before they were detained. I wanted to try to be on the front end to try to prevent those things from happening. So I had applied to become a probation officer in Cook County. And I was literally on that waiting list for 2 years before I got the call. And so I had another job in between time. I had a chance to do adult corrections. I was an adult correctional supervisor inside of an adult institution. And I learned right then and there, no, I can't work with adults. They're older, they're set in their ways, and this ain't for me. So God, please come get me out of this real quick, fast, and in a hurry. Cook County called, and that's when I found my passion of working with young people. So it was then at that moment, I had all of these things that the Lord had planted inside of me. Here I am working in the criminal justice system. And then the light bulb moment happened for me. I didn't go to the NBA. However, I was very well in basketball, not for me, but for the next generation. So that's when I became a coach. I was a musician, but that wasn't for me. That was for those who were coming behind me. So all of the things that I learned growing up, it was just the Lord preparing me to just be that person, one of many people to give back to the young people. And so I was like, okay, since I have a background in music, I'm going to start a youth community choir. And so in 2001, that's actually how Imago Dei got started. That was the first entity that we started. We started a youth community choir. So I was able to use my musical background to have a 75 voice choir of 15, 16, 17-year-old young people. We were actually going around singing. And so I wanted to make us a little bit different than, at the time, the community choirs that were popular. You know, choirs were really popular back then, 2000 and in the early 90s and 80s. And so how can we be different? We started doing concerts inside of the institutions that I used to work in. And so that's how Imago Dei started, just using what God had given me to give back to the young people, to show them, hey, it's something inside of you. So how do we pull that out of you? Right. And so the next entity that we started was our Panthers basketball program. We started that in 2009. So that's how I was able to use my basketball background. And we started a traveling AAU basketball program, which I just had tryouts tonight, right before this afternoon, before I came on with you guys. And so it's an amazing journey. We've been doing this. And so through these two programs alone, we've worked with literally hundreds of young people in the city of Chicago. Now we're talking about science, right? So my job, my boss, my employer, Cook County, looked at the numbers. It was all about numbers for them. In 2009, we started our basketball program with 20 young people, 20 boys, young men. The very next year, we turned 20 into like 50. The year after that, we went from 50 to 75. So the county is looking at me like, wow, how are you doing this? You know, and I just said, well, I use this orange ball as a tool to make that connection. You ask the average young person, hey, can you hoop? They're going to say, yeah, whether they can hoop or not. In their mind, they can hoop. So I'm like, okay, let me use this little orange round thing right here, just as a connection to reach young people. We'll get them on the court and we'll do all of those things. But how can we be different than all of the other basketball programs? So when we do our tournaments, we try to get our tournament scheduled on college campuses because we want to expose them to higher education. Now that I captured your attention with basketball, hey, our tournament, matter of fact, our first tournament this year is going to be at Elmhurst College. So it's not too far from home. You get to see a college campus while you're playing basketball, doing something that you enjoy doing. And so when my employer saw these numbers and what we were doing, they said, hey, do you think you can start a mentoring program for young people who are court involved? And so I had never had the thought or mindset of becoming a mentor. But I'm like, yeah, I was up for the challenge because it's helping young people. And so in 2012, Imago Dei added its third entity, which is called Pen Pals, Male Mentoring Program. Pen Pals is an acronym, Positive Exposure Network. And so what we do is we work with court-involved young people, at the time, young men. And we just try to live by that name, Positive Exposure Network. We do our best to try to expose them to as many positive things outside of the neighborhood that they would have never experienced before, whether it's recreational, educational, cultural. We just try to broaden their horizons. It's more to life than what's in the community of Roseland or what's in the community of Argyle Gardens. So we just tried to, do those things. And then in 2014, we started our Dove program, Daughters of Virtue, which is similar to Pen Pals, but it's just more gender specific for the young ladies. And so that's pretty much what Imago Dei has been doing. And it's one of those things. So the name itself is Image of God. It's Latin meaning image of God.
Oh, wow.
But I don't go around in my practices or in our mentoring sessions quoting scripture or preaching the Bible. What I do is I just try to live it. I think that's the best way to do it. That's how you reach the young people. You have to live it. I don't have to sit here and quote Genesis 1:1 to you, but if I can live it before you, that's going to have a greater impact on you. if I can show that I really care about you and, becoming successful in life, in the mentoring program, we don't call ourselves mentors, we call ourselves coaches. And I just took that from my experiences of playing basketball and the coaches that I had. None of the coaches that I had put that gift of basketball inside of me. That came from God. But it was their job to pull it out of me and to coach me through it. And so that's the approach that we use in all of our programs with Imago Dei. We're here to be life coaches or athletic, just to coach these things out of our young people, to get them to know that, hey, we're here for you. And I just want to be that living example.
Walk it like I talk it, huh?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. The pulpit is great. It's wonderful. It serves its purpose. But I've been a minister through Imago Dei longer than I've been a minister in the pulpit.
Nice.
And I just think just being able to reach young people. My pastor often says, you have a way of reaching young people. And I'm like, well, Pastor, I'm getting a little bit older now. So I'm learning now that the young people that I'm surrounded by, they're teaching me more. So when I first started the mentoring efforts with Imago Dei, I just went out gung-ho and man, I feel like I got so much to offer, and we were just teaching and teaching. But now I'm taking a step back and I'm just listening. I'm watching them and they're teaching me more things as things, continue to change in our communities. But that's pretty much what we do with Imago Dei Ministries, man. You're just trying to give back to the young people. I've been assigned, so with probation, we're assigned geographically. I've been assigned to the community of Roseland, West Pullman, and Argyle Gardens, which are all far south communities of Chicago, for going on 18 years. In June, it'll be 18 years in one community. Mm-hmm. And I've listened through the years. I used to show this video clip from Channel 7, ABC News. There was a clip that said, the Wild 100s, the Roseland community. Chuck Gowdy did a series on this community. But what bothered me was the fact that they called it the Wild 100s. How do you expect people from Roseland to act any other differently if you've already labeled them as being wild?
You're from that wild, Victor.
Right, from the wild
hundreds.
And so, yeah, and people, to this day refer to the Wild Hundreds, Chirac and all that. No, we have to begin to change what we're saying, what we're speaking into the atmosphere, and live differently. And then that will cause our young people to see, oh, there is a different way. Oh, I can change my life. Oh, I can go to college and graduate. Oh, I can do these things, and so that's the backdrop of Imago Dei. It all started with me, God planting those little seeds inside of me being younger. And all the time, because it didn't go my way, I got salty. But as I got older and more mature, I look back, it wasn't for me. It was for me to help the next person, the next young person.
That's it.
Wow. That's good. Does anyone have any questions or anything you'd like to add to the conversation? To ask Victor?
I have a question for the Trailblazers. So earlier we had an icebreaker. We had 2 truths and a lie with the Trailblazers. Give me one key takeaway from everything you've heard tonight about faith and science. Just give me one thing you learned or you may view differently from the conversations we've had this evening. Jaden, kick us off.
Well, something I learned is like how faith, religion, and science, like how they can work together, and you don't need to see them as like 2 separate entities. Like you can use them off of each other. They can work off of each other, and thinking them as 2 separate entities is like not always the best because it then can confuse you.
Nice.
I'll go. I kind of came to the realization that like I learn best by watching and seeing instead of like reading and being talked to. And I was realizing that that's like the best way for me to understand something. So I feel like I should do that with Bible and God and faith and everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So I learned that even though something like I may be good at, even though if it doesn't like go as far as I want it to go, it may not be for me to like learn. It may be to help my sister, my friends, or other people in my life.
I learned that the things that you do in life can also impact others. So maybe like if you're bad at something, or maybe if you don't succeed in something, you can also help somebody impact in what you want to do in life as well.
Wow.
That's good. Bravo.
I love it.
I learned how amazing each of you are. I'm so glad we had this opportunity together.
Indeed, and we are so proud of you. This was amazing. Thank you, Victor, for stopping in, and thank you for this conversation. And anything that the Black Scientist Cooperative can do to partner with you to help in sowing into these youth, we are so open to do it. So
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
please feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. And let me tell you, this was not an easy topic to discuss, especially, being a minister. But again, I just conclude by saying they don't have to be, I think when we look at it, we don't have to just try to force them to work together, or we don't have to try to look at it like one outrules the other. No, they're two in their own right. And we need both of them to make all of this work.
That's right.
Well, thank you guys for joining in, and thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Black Scientist Cooperative as we talked faith and science, the youth edition. So tune in next week and we will see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us.
Deep flows like a breeze flowing through me, from my head to my feet. Your love runs smooth, ooh, it soothes, and you're making life right. I'm so glad that you're mine.